Hello, watchers. It's a stellar night tonight. I'm enjoying this weather. I'm making this video because I'm being urged to. So just let me tell you about what happened to me last week. Last week, let me go back. One day in January, this organization contacted me and it asked me if I wanted to do their job training. And I said yes, because, part of the way out of the shelter system is to, get a job if you're not incapable of having one. And so I wanted to get the job. So I did the training and I completed it. I met a lot of great people, So I graduated back in February. And now it's almost June. And I had, up until last week, I had been on one interview between then. And it didn't turn out, So the week before last week, I had been out to see my job developer twice. And in that week, I already knew I had the job. Before the second time, I had to visit her. And so did she. So I started on Monday, right? I met with the lady who interviewed me. She's the boss there. And so I came in on Tuesday, right? She wasn't in the office that day, the lady who hired me. And so I'm there on Wednesday, and I'm walking up the block, and I'm all happy because I'm early, And I see her getting out of her car, the boss, and I'm like, hi, and she looks at me like, what? And so I left her alone and I started walking up the block towards the office. And she called to me and she's like, hold on a minute, she had to lock her car and stuff. So I'm like, okay, my intuition is going off. Like, you saw that look, right? And I did. And so she comes to me and she's like, oh, nobody told you? I was like, told me what? And she was like, they haven't created your email address yet, and you have to take a background check. I said, a background check? She's like, yes. Now, during the training, they did mention a background check, but I said, I was there just last week, and I already had this job, and nobody mentioned a thing to me about a background check at that time, So I'm talking to her, and I'm like, oh. I said, well, let me call the job developer when I get upstairs. She didn't want me to go upstairs. So she was pretty much like, I'll see you when you pass that background check. And I was like, okay, that's not a problem, But even I know HR processes. And I know I should have had that background check the minute they offered me that position. I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I said, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I said, instead of going back to the shelter, I went to go see the job developer. And I explained the situation, and she was just downplaying it like it wasn't nothing. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed inside. Actually, I'm fucking heated, you know? But I kept my composure because this is a professional setting, you know? I said, okay. And in that moment, sitting there, she's asking me these questions. Oh, did you get an offer letter? No, I didn't get an offer letter. You know? Y'all told me to come on Monday. No, you didn't get an offer letter. And so she putting it in at that moment. What? So I needed to have the offer letter, then the background check. These are their processes, and it's standard everywhere else for these things to happen before you actually go to the job. Now, I was pissed, but I didn't say nothing. Then after all that was finished and everything, she said, oh, you're going to be receiving something. You need to, reject it or approve it or something like that, you know. So I said, how soon am I going to receive this, you know? And she said, oh, you should receive it pretty quickly. So that was a Wednesday. I didn't receive it until Friday. And when I opened it, you know, it was a description of, I thought it would be a description of the job that I was doing, but it wasn't. It was another description for another kind of job within that organization. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So I rejected it, right? And then I sent her email saying, you know, I rejected that because it had the wrong job role in it. And she was like, oh, you were supposed to approve it. And I was like, why? She said, oh, that's the only way you can get the background check because this role that we got you in is new. And I was just like, sure. I know what goes on behind the scenes. I've worked in the background of a lot of companies for a lot of years, honey. This smells like bullshit to me. This is a numbers game when it comes to the government. But anyway, I'm not trying to blow their little whatever they got going on, you know. I'm just telling the story of how God answered the question for me. And so, of course, you know, after that, after that email, after her response, I told her, I was like, this was very short-sighted and unprofessional. You know, pretty much, why didn't you tell me that before I received this document? That I was supposed to approve it even though it had this different role on it. But I'm no fool. I see. You know? She gonna make it seem like it's my job to tell her what the hell she's supposed to be doing. And somewhere in me, I was done. You know? And then another email went out, and she was just like, oh, you know, if there's a problem, you know, because her boss is out of town, you know, you can see her boss next week, which is tomorrow, which is the day she suggested. No, Thursday. I said, I can't. No accountability whatsoever. Boom. And I sent it. Oh no, honey. So let's leap forward. So now that day that I went to, that I was coming back from being embarrassed, this lady is not going to let me back in the building until I pass that background check, which I ain't have no problem with it, So now I'm heading back home, and I got off the bus because, I had an incident on the bus too because I was so pissed off, but he low-key was like, begging for it. But anyway, when I got off the bus, I was just exasperated, like, yo, this is before I even received the letter, And I asked God, I asked him, should I take this position? If my background check does come back okay and I didn't improve nothing because nothing went through the right way, the way it was supposed to. So, if they come back to me, because they see what's happening, and I'm probably not the first one. Should I take this position? Because I had already learned a lot within 2 days. And I had already outlined how to start solving their problem. But I can't tell you what that problem is, And I asked God, should I take this job? And of course, I look to the sky when I do these things. And in the sky, I saw forming a face of a lion. And that's me. And it looked like a reflection at one point. And that was the only thing I saw. And then I had to get on the train, and I didn't feel like my question was answered, right? So I go down in the train, in the train station, and I was waiting for the 4 train to come. Because, the 4 train, it's an express train here in New York City. And I was going back downtown, And so the 4 train was taking so long to come. It was unusual. It was 5 minutes, 10 minutes going by, 15 minutes going by, 22 minutes going by. I was like, where's this 4 train? And so on the other track, the 6 train pulls up. But I'm still waiting for the 4 train. The 6 train pulls up. I hear the conductor giving the announcement. But I'm still looking at the 4 track. And right before the doors closed on the 6 train, I decided to get on the 6 train, and that's where God wanted me to be. He said, take the long ride, Take the long ride, snake it out, enjoy your flowers. And that's what I did, and I got caught up in the door too, trying to get on. But I made it, And so I did enjoy the ride, It gave me a chance to think.